I am Athaiah, the third King of Palladium. Today, I share the trials that forged me, the battles that demanded my soul, and the journey that shaped the crown I wear. My story is not one of privilege. It is of fire, pain, and triumph, written in the clash of powers and the cries of the oppressed. At the tender age of 6, my training began. King Athaiah, my predecessor, established a regimen where every child of Palladium was trained to wield their innate powers. By 13, I faced my first trial. The Blassikian was a monstrosity from the planet Lumisintha, a biomechanical terror impervious to ordinary attacks, with claws that disrupted energy fields and a void stare that could paralyze the soul. I was young and afraid, but fear is a test of willpower. I lured the Blassikian into the dense caverns of Palladium, where its agility was compromised. Summoning my latent power, I unleashed an electromagnetic pulse from my hands to disrupt its exoskeleton, revealing a weakness. The final blow was an arc of kinetic energy, focused to pierce its core. The creature fell, and I emerged victorious, but my journey had just begun. The following year, at 14, I faced the Anovian from Luminos, this being bent light and energy to its will, using them to blind, disorient, and attack. For a year, I trained, learning to manipulate the flow of energy blindfolded to sharpen my instincts. When the battle came, I danced through its radiant assaults, channeling my power to absorb its attacks and redirect them. The turning point came when I amplified my energy into a disruptive pulse that overpowered the Anovian's reserves. Depleted and vulnerable, it fell to my precision and strategy. I learned then that raw strength was never enough. Mastery and patience could triumph over even the most powerful foes. At 15, I faced the Vralalcian, a towering beast whose rage amplified its destructive power. Its fury tore through the ground, ruptured the air, and unleashed devastating shockwaves. I realized its rage was both its strength and its downfall. Using my mastery over earth manipulation, I led it into a narrow canyon. There, I summoned a seismic eruption to destabilize the terrain, trapping it. As it struggled, I channeled the volcanic energy of Palladium's core into a concentrated blast, shattering its defenses and striking its ancient energy heart. The beast collapsed, and with it, the ground fell silent. At 16, the Vishavikan's terrifying presence was almost overwhelming. Its abyssal maw and crushing claws were threats, but its true danger lay in its predatory agility and the void it could summon. I countered by using my own energy to create a counter-void, essentially fighting fire with fire, or, in this case, void with void. By focusing my energy into a concentrated form, I could disrupt its void, leading to a battle where speed and precision were paramount. At 17, the Vallarian's molten heart was a new challenge. Its heat-based attacks could incinerate, but I used the cold energy from my training to counter its fiery nature. By enveloping myself in a protective aura of cold, I could approach it, using my own energy manipulation to solidify the lava around it, momentarily trapping it long enough to strike at its core. At 18, the Spevillician's blend of agility and energy manipulation was a dance of combat. I had to match its hyper-agility with my own, using predictive movements to anticipate its actions. My strategy involved disrupting its energy patterns, forcing it to overexert its reserves, leading to its defeat through exhaustion and a well-timed fusion strike. At 19, the Satorian's feral agility and shadow prowling required me to enhance my senses beyond human limits. I countered its stealth with my own light manipulation, illuminating the battlefield to remove its advantage. My victory came from overpowering its savage frenzy with sheer force and the strategic use of lunar empowerment. At 20, the Mentillian's shadow leap and armor morphing made it one of the trickiest opponents. I learned to anticipate its movements, using my own energy to create barriers that its teleportation couldn't bypass. The battle was won by exploiting its moments of fury, where its precision was momentarily lost. At 21, Gullerian's azure resilience and horned fury were countered by my strategic use of energy to disrupt its energy assimilation. I created a field where its own power would backfire, leading to a victory through cunning rather than brute force. At 22, facing the Drayvimian with its infernal armor and hellfire wings, I had to become the air itself, using my own flight capabilities to match its speed. My victory was achieved through a battle in the skies, where I outmaneuvered it and eventually extinguished its hellish flames with a blast of cold energy. At 23, the Grashallian's chromatic armor and elemental resonance required a battle where I had to become one with the elements. By disrupting its connection to earth and water, I managed to weaken its stronghold, leading to a victory through environmental manipulation. My last opponent before ascending to the throne was the Ovarkian, whose resilience and adaptive strength were legendary. Here, I had to use every skill I had developed, blending my ethereal manipulation with physical might. I managed to outlast and outsmart it by constantly shifting my combat tactics, leading to a hard-fought victory that marked the end of my trials. Years of trials prepared me for the sacred tournament of kings. I was no longer a boy, but neither was I yet a king. Each opponent bore the legacy of their forefathers, each one wielding unique powers to claim the crown. The final round pitted me against my fiercest rival, a telekinetic warrior who could bend matter to his will. The battle raged for hours, testing the limits of our resolve. I countered his abilities by unraveling his energy flows, exploiting every lapse in concentration. My experience with death and danger proved decisive. I bested him, and with the crown placed upon my head, I vowed to serve my people with honor. A king's duty is not to rule, but to protect. News reached me of the Darcliumians, oppressors who enslaved a neighboring planet. I rallied an army and led the charge myself. The battle was fierce, but Palladian might prevailed. I unleashed waves of light energy to disable their forces, breaking their chains of oppression. But peace is never eternal. Soon, word came of a Travakkian, a stellar custodian who forced an entire planet to worship him as a god. He was a monstrous tyrant, his chains imbued with celestial energy, his strength seemingly limitless. The battle against him was my most grueling. He entangled me in his energy chains, nearly draining my resolve. I endured, drawing on the power of my people's hopes and channeling it into a final radiant burst. His dominion shattered, and the enslaved were freed. With each victory, my power grew, and I ascended to the stage of ethereal monarch. But this new strength brought a new foe, a Brallakian, a being of equal power who enslaved entire quadrants of planets. This battle was not of fists or blades, but of ethereal forces that reshaped the cosmos. We clashed across dimensions, our powers rippling through space-time itself. The Brallakian wielded overwhelming might, but I wielded precision. Using my mastery, I unraveled their control over reality, freeing the quadrants and delivering a final strike that ended their reign. As I reached the stage of Oblivion King, my power transcended the physical and the astral. I faced a Drayvkian of unparalleled might, capable of creating universes and destroying realms. Our battle spanned dimensions and timelines, stars being born and extinguished in our wake. To prevail, I embraced both creation and destruction as extensions of my will, wielding them in harmony. In the final moment, I channeled the cosmic balance to unravel my opponent's existence, freeing the realms they had enslaved. My journey did not end there. I continued to ascend, liberating worlds and inspiring the Palladian people to strive for greatness. When I reached the stage of Universal Arbiter, my mortal life ended. I joined King Ithiel and those who came before me in a higher plane. Yet my story lives on in the hearts of my people, a reminder that the greatest kings are not born. They are forged in the crucible of trials.
Tell me what you're looking for, baby, it ain't out there. Chasing shadows when you know I'm the one who cares. I'm the vibe, I'm the truth, yeah, you feel it too. You can't replace me, I'm the rhythm you move to. There can only be, there can only be, there can only be one of me. Can only be, there can only be, there can only be one of me. Can only be, there can only be, there can only be one of me. I know it's plain to see, every if you deny, there can only be one